Hey, it's Arrow, and this is Defrag. This is where we question the questions, and the answers that we get, we question those as well. I do this on a transition walk through a forest in South Charlotte, North Carolina. The idea is to come here and use the universe as an energy source to take, not to do so for self, but to take so that we can learn as one. This is Defrag. What I want to put focus on this time around is something that I heard from Stephen Furtick, and he goes, when we wake up in the morning, we brush our teeth so that our breath doesn't stink. When I wake up in the morning, I brush the way that I think, because by 10:30 there will be a meltdown. Brushing the way that you think, that's our subject today, because it's that process of thinking that gets every one of us in trouble. I'm very guilty, and so is my wife, and we openly talk about this all the time, that we tend to write a story before it happens. Being a professional, that live stage is everything to our hearts, and so what we try to do is plan for every bad scenario. And the more and more I think about that, the more and more I feel like that we're just setting ourselves up. It doesn't matter how prepared you are, if you are facing the potential of there being a bad storm, you're actually going at it with lesser energy because you're worried about the performance. How many years have you been in this? What is your backup to the backup to the backup? It's always with you, and yet you carry this fear 3 and 4 weeks out of something that hasn't even happened yet. And trust me, the place that you're going to do the performance probably isn't even thinking about you. So learning how to brush your way of thinking so there won't be a meltdown by 10:30. To hear the pastor talk about that today really put in focus why I take these transition walks, because it's a form of brushing the way that I think. I have multiple personalities, or I've been doing research, and the research shows, no, you don't have multiple personalities. It's not schizophrenia, and it's not a personality disorder. What it is that I like to categorize things so much that, oh, well, if I'm doing this, then it must be this personality. If I'm doing that, it's that personality. So what I'm trying to do is wash or brush the way that I think, and to accept that every way that I think, it's just me. It's just me. And if you think I'm alone on this, oh, come on now. Be honest with yourself. The way that you think controls everything that you do, and your mind is already made up before the event already happens. Well, how do you break that habit? First of all, by being aware. Second of all, by physically making sure that you stop doing it. Talk about it. Have an open conversation with somebody in your family or somebody at work and say, look, when I start saying things like this, you need to tap me on the shoulder saying, come back here to the present. There is value in everything that everybody says, does, will do. There's value in it. Because you know what? For the world to work, we need each other. I want you to go super deep on that thought, okay? Defrag that. Defrag it in the way of saying, what do you mean? For there to be a sheet of paper, there had to be a seed in the ground. It became a tree that struggled through several different snowstorms or rainstorms. That tree grew to sacrifice its life to become a sheet of paper. On that sheet of paper, any writer puts their thoughts on it. The reader receives it. You see what I'm saying? There is a continuation to all things. One of the mantras that we learned in martial arts as I grew into a 3rd degree black belt was learn to love all living things. You can say it all day. I've learned to love all living things. But the question is, do you believe it? Did you activate it? Do you trust it? Do you find the future being more loving because you took the time to love all living things? I think what I found very interesting about that comment from the pastor was he said, brushing the way you think. He didn't say scrubbing. He didn't say getting in there and digging things out. He didn't say have an operation on the way you think. He said brushing. But I'd like to put something else to it. And I don't have anybody's permission to do this, but not only should you brush the way that you think, but I think maybe you should floss in between the areas that you think. I admitted already that I categorize everything. I put everything in files. This personality, that personality, I'm doing this because of this, I'm doing that because of that. Well, here's the thing. Let's floss between the mindsets. Another subject that Furtick got onto was we think we know who we are. Now, I have openly admitted many times inside my journals and on different podcast episodes that I have no idea who I am. 29 years of daily writing, you would think that I would get a glimpse of who I am. Yeah, that ain't going to happen. But what you do is you learn to identify that the personality that you think you have is nothing more than a pattern. So what is your personality? What is your pattern? Getting in there with that floss in between the way you think, and you start to see who you are and not what you are. And who you are is what really inspires others to do what it is that they do. He gave an example today of, if you stand around judging people all day and you find laughter in that, that's the way you think, and you find that that's comfortable to do, and because it's entertaining. So if you're hanging out with people and you're judging others, you got to put yourself in their shoes. What would happen if you were on the receiving end of that? When you floss in between the way that you think, you start realizing the pictures and the patterns that you're painting for others really give people a reason to judge you. But then again, it's like, it's just you, and then we write you off as just you being you. And it's something that we should practice every day. Like I journalize. I have a morning journal and I have a defrag journal that I do. And what I'm doing is I'm getting in there. I'm getting underneath the things that, because at surface level, we will sit there and paint a picture and rewrite the story. We'll make everything look pretty because I see us do it on social media where we do that. But the thing is, though, is that beneath that surface, beneath that image that we are putting out there for other people to see, we all want to be accepted. We all want to be loved. But there's some dirt going on, and it's decaying just like your teeth. And so all of a sudden you go into the dentist, they're going to say, we're going to have to do some work. What do you mean? I brush every day. Yeah, but are you flossing in between the way that you think? So trying to put yourself forward is an act of trying. I don't know if you've ever done this before, that when someone says, I'm trying, put a penny in front of them and tell them to try to move that penny. They usually end up moving the penny. Put it back and say, I said, try to move that penny. And they end up moving it again. So this time around, what you do is you set it all forward. You go, try to move that penny. And they move it. See, when you say that you're trying to move it, then go into the physical action of you're trying to move it and it won't move. And when you see that interpretation of what the word trying does and what we feel when you're using that word, don't say, I'm trying to do it. I am doing it. I will do it. I am here, and this is the way I've got to think. So brushing in between the way that you think. It will help you in so many different ways, especially when you get in those moments in the car or you're sitting in your cubicle at work and those thoughts are just all over the place and you feel like the world is hating your guts and it's like, I can't wait to get out of here. I had a coworker yesterday that said, I faked my sickness earlier today because I just didn't want to be here. I said, so I understand. I said, we all go through those mindsets and we're all guilty of those things because, it's a job. And where does it say you're supposed to love your job, every hour that you're there? But now that you've been here and you've shared your smile and you've felt other people smile, how do you feel about the idea that you stayed here? No, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did because I do feel a lot better than what I did earlier. Brushing in between the way that you think. Okay, we identify that we're not in a good mood, but the habit and the pattern is, well, I'm going to push myself away from this. Stop doing that. Brush the way you think and then floss in between the way you think. I'm Arrow, and that's Defrag.